Well, this week, again, we're studying Torah portion Mishpatim, translates to rulings or right rulings or judgments or ordinances. But before we get to the Midrash, Scripture tells us you'll eat and be satisfied, and you'll bless Adonai your God for the good that He has given you. So let's do that. Abba, we have eaten and we're satisfied. We thank you for the land. It's in Yeshua's name we thank you. Amen. So we read from Torah portion Mishpatim, the Aliyot that we read, and this was the first verse. We saw that the word Hamishpatim is the second word from the right in this passage. Mishpat is singular, Mishpatim plural. Translated as rulings or right rulings or ordinances, typically. Read from Isaiah 66 and from Mark chapter 9. And so now for the first question is, according to the traditional counting, how many mitzvot are in this Torah portion? Is it A, 51, B, 66, C, 37, or D, 42?
Bunch. I'm tempted to say B.
Oh,
I
wow.
don't know.
I'll go with D.
D.
I'm just guessing.
Usual answer is C. Right? You go with C, you'll get it most of the time.
But in this case, well, let's see. B is out.
Oh, rats.
But, sorry, so is
Oh,
D. So
There we go.
what should be C?
it is 51A.
Wow. You want commandments in there?
There was a bunch of them.
That carves out from 613. A good chunk.
Nearly 10%, right? Not quite, but nearly 10%.
Yeah.
And that depends on what sage is adding them up to.
Yeah. True.
If you use an abacus or a calculator. So we're not going to go through all the mitzvot in the portion, but we'll go kind of a summary of some of them and more detail into others. The Torah of the Hebrew bondman, the redemption of the bondmaid, not to sell the bondmaid whom you've married and treat as a daughter, the Hebrew bondmaid married to your son are considered to be mitzvot. And this looks like the print size, the font size is pretty small, so I apologize for that. I should have probably made it multiple slides here, but with this passage in verse 4, 21 verse 4, if his master gives him a wife, the commentary is that the wife is not a Hebrew. And then you go down to, not from this week's portion, obviously, but from Devarim 15:12. If your kinsman, a Hebrew man or woman, sold to you, then he shall serve you 6 years, but the 7th year you shall set him free. So thus, the passage in our portion refers to a non-Hebrew woman, since a Hebrew woman and her children would never belong to the master. They would only be there for 6 months, or 6 years, and freed on the 7th year by statute. And this is from 21:7. If a man sells his daughter as a maidservant, she shall not go free as the slaves go free. So this is just as by way of commentary. This is from Art Scroll Humash on the subject here. He, the daughter, or the person, the father, is permitted to sell, quote unquote, sell the daughter because the sale is expected to result in a marriage either to the master or his son. In fact, if neither of the two marries her, the Torah regards it as a betrayal of the girl. If one of the two chooses to marry her, the purchase price received by the father will constitute the betrothal money, the bride price. The girl goes free without payment in one of 3 ways. At the end of 6 years, upon the advent of the Jubilee year, or C, when her puberty begins, which is based on an interpretation of 21:11. Now, she would not go free, of course, if she is married, because she becomes the master's or the father's wife or his son's wife. Here's verse 8. She proves to be displeasing to her master. And this is from different translations, the New JPS and the Judaica Press Complete Tanakh, which reads, "For if she is displeasing to her master who did not designate her for himself, then he shall enable her to be redeemed. He shall not rule over her to sell her to another person when he betrays her." Or as the New Judaica Press says, since he broke faith with her. The word, again, commentary, the word is spelled lamed aleph, as in lo, did not, but it is pronounced lo for himself. Our verse indicates that the master had a moral obligation to arrange for the marriage to take place, according to Ibn Ezra. And taking both the spelling and the pronunciation into account, the verse is saying that he did not designate her for himself, although he should have. Continuing, Rashi's comment, did not designate her. For he should have designated her and married her, and the money paid for her purchase is the money of her betrothal, her bride price money. Here, Scripture hints that it is a mitzvah for the master to perform the designation for marriage with the maidservant, and it hints that she would not require any other betrothal, neither money or articles of value. The money the father originally received for selling the daughters now would become the money of betrothal from her master. So there's some discussion on the Torah of the Hebrew bondmaid, since it sounds perhaps a bit odd to American or Western ideas. We don't typically sell our daughters or think of it as being selling our daughters in that sense. And it doesn't seem it's really the same. It's not the same way either. Selling your daughter, even in our text, it's not the same as just selling your daughter without the idea of marriage. So you're not to diminish a wife's food, clothing, or conjugal rights. You're to put to death whoever attacks his own father or mother. You're to put to death whoever curses his own father or mother. And there are penalties for inflicting injuries, depending on the injury. There are penalties for a master beating a slave, and even unto death. Penalties for oxen goring people to death. Penalties, the Torah of injury caused by falling into a pit, and Torah of injuries caused by one ox to another. And in 21, 22 through 25, it reads, if men struggle for each other and strike a woman with child so that she gives birth prematurely, if there is no injury, he may surely be fined as the woman's husband may demand of him, and he shall pay as the judges decide. So, my comment, this is sometimes used as a proof text in favor of abortion. Reason is, it seems to treat the woman who gives birth prematurely and no injury as if basically as nothing. Nothing happened. But You look at a couple of other texts. Institute for Scripture Search has her children come out, and New JPS has when a miscarriage occurs, results. And so looking at just the two words that that discuss it, Vyatsu Yeladeha, it's literally come out of her male children. And it seems I think there's a bit of an issue on the next slide. It seems that the word ason is in the wrong place here. I think it's an issue with I should have probably saved this as a picture file. I think that this computer's having a hard time reading the Hebrew, but it literally would say, and not he becomes harm or injury. Ason is the word for harm or injured there. Aleph, Samik, Vav, final noon. So literally come out her children, and he not becomes harm. This might be a better picture there. Actually, this one I guess is there. There it goes a little bit better. So you see the word ason there at the end. Come out her male children, he not becomes harm. So one of the things that is sometimes argued is that this means that no injury to the mother occurs. But when you go back to the text, it's no injury to her male child, not talking about the mother. This is not talking about the mother, it's talking about essentially the male or the child. The grammar doesn't support injury to the mother. This is the wrong gender. If the children come out but are not injured, the one who did this is fine. So if the child comes out and does not survive, or if the wife does not survive, then it's life for life. So this, when you look at the underlying Hebrew text, it doesn't really support an argument that the baby does not count as life. Any interpretation that says it is really is more of a political interpretation than a actual looking at the text interpretation. So next mitzvah is you shall not suffer a witch or a sorceress to live. Kashaf is the word used there, the root word there, kashaf, meaning certain related words, an Akkadian word, kasaku, and Ugartic, meaning sorcery. Pharaoh had sorcerers in his retinue of advisors. We know that from Shemot chapter 7. They are grouped with the Chachamim, the wise men, and the Chartumim, the magicians. The feminine form here says, that's why it's sorceress or witch in that sense. That's what's going on here. The penalty is a death penalty, and sorcery was listed among the sins of King Manasseh, according to 2 Chronicles chapter 33. So here's some commentary from Art Scroll on this. It says that Sorcery is an attempt to assume control of nature through the powers of impurity and thus to deny God's mastery. The idea of "you shall not permit a sorceress to live." This is a stronger expression than simply stating that she incurs the death penalty. Those who engage in sorcery are extremely dangerous to others because of the corrosive and enticing nature of such activity. The Torah exhorts the nation to root them out zealously. That's from Maimonides or Ramban. So, what do you think about how would we or could we or we want to carry this out in 21st century Southwest Oklahoma?
If we know someone's a sorceress or a sorcerer.
I guess how would we determine? I guess the first thing would be to determine that they in fact are a sorceress. I guess because there are, there are pagan, pagan shops in the neighborhood that sell, sorceress kind of items. I guess.
We have to make sure we don't do business with them, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But that's not what this.
It doesn't say don't do business with them, right?
Well, we can't kill them. We just can't go over and say, hey, you're a sorceress. They say yes, we can't just kill them.
No, we can't do that by our laws, by Torah, that's what it's saying.
Right. But he's asking, how can we apply this in the practical sense
We
today?
can't, we're not a Torah nation.
Right, I agree. So the best that I can do is not to do business with them, not to associate. And
But
avoid.
that kind of begs the question, if this was a Torah nation, and you were capable of doing it, would you?
I have to. Well, we'd have to take them to court. There'd have to be,
Let the court put them to death?
I suppose, so. There'd have to be 2 or 3 witnesses, that's Torah. And then, you have to put them to death somehow. You can't have a vigilante group who will just kill them.
Sometimes I think we say, oh, we wish this was a Torah nation, we wish we lived by Torah. But if we actually did, some of us would probably not be willing to do what the Torah says to do.
I can see that as being true.
Maybe it's because we weren't raised in it.
Yeah.
I guess all we do today is that we can't do it, leave it to God. I don't know. But he's saying there, hey, you do it.
Yeah.
Tough one, Wayne.
Mm-hmm. It is.
So you may go to prison or get the death penalty for doing it here, but God wouldn't hold you accountable for it, right?
Well, if you're gonna follow the Torah about 2 or 3 witnesses, then you have to have some kind of procedure whereby witnesses come forward, bring their case, and they're convicted, so to speak.
What
You
if
couldn't
they
just go and do it.
openly say, like they do today, yeah, I am a witch.
And do you think if we were in a country run by Torah and everyone knew it, because that's the way it's been, do you think a sorcerer or a witch is gonna come out in public and just get on a foghorn and say, hey, I'm a witch?
Oh,
Yeah.
well, they did back then. I mean, the witch of Endor, Saul went to quite often, from what I understand.
Well, that was a failure on the part of the leadership back then. Should have been dead.
But I mean, it wasn't like they were operating in secret. Everybody knew.
Well known enough for Shlomo to
Yeah.
find the witch of Endor. Or at least to know how to contact. Or to make contact.
Who was it that got the witch of Endor?
Wasn't it Shlomo?
Saul went to her to be the medium. To
Oh,
talk to the dead
Shaul, okay,
prophet.
it wasn't Shlomo, yeah.
Well, kings have lots of intelligence gathering sources. But who knows? But
Well, it seems like it's that case, and he was the king in a Torah observant supposedly nation. He, instead of consulting, should have taken more direct action, probably.
yeah.
And what would the definition of a sorcerer or sorceress back then be compared to now? Is it the same?
Well, I mean,
What would you have to do back then to be a sorceress?
well, perhaps another question would be: are those who say they're sorcerers or sorceresses now actual sorceresses or sorcerers? You know, saying you're one doesn't necessarily make you one.
Yeah,
I guess,
and that's
yeah.
what I mean. You would have to know what it meant to say you were one or not. Why you gotta throw that out there? Well, you know we couldn't get an answer.
That's the best Midrash. We don't have an answer. Listen,
I've been involved in the past in some degree in that. It's part of something I depend on.
And what we think of now as that,
Well,
maybe not what it was
I,
back then.
yeah, I don't know. But the attempt to assume control over nature through powers other than leaving it to the Almighty and His Godhood, it's an attempt, and sometimes it's an attempt to assume control of nature or events through a sheer act of will. Being so proud that you're so powerful that you can just will something to happen and it will change the course of things.
Kind of intruding upon what God has kept for Himself to do.
And it's essentially stepping into God's seat, an attempt to step into His seat and say, I'm going to do this to make it happen.
so in that sense, would cloud seeding be considered some type of sorcery?
I don't think so. I think if scientists can describe the physical way that these chemicals and compounds can make through some kind of natural reaction to drop their water, no. It'd be the same as rerouting a stream. That's not witchcraft, that's physically making it go somewhere through physical activity.
Mm-hmm.
But in my view, sorcery is an act of will in an attempt to use dark forces,
Yeah.
unseen forces to make things happen.
Yeah.
Not physical forces like you would actually. But I do appreciate the idea that there are some scientists, especially mathematicians, who've gotten so deep into it, into science and mathematics and how it works, that they think there is magic involved. You know? Because it is quite amazing when you can apply science and make things happen that aren't happening
Mm-hmm.
right now normally, but if you do this and change these, this will happen. It seems to be, I think it can promote an experience.
So this is the next slide is a mitzvah to return your poor neighbor's cloak by sunset. If you take the cloak as a pledge. Essentially, that's if you're taking everything he has to keep him warm as a pledge, you have to give it back to him. So in the long run, if you're giving someone a loan of something, if he's too poor to have anything to give as partial payment or as a pledge for the loan, collateral, that's right for the term. Thank you. It'd be better to not take anything because it'd be too tiring over every day to give him back his cloak, so to speak. It'd be easier just to say, I'm going to trust you for this loan and this for this time period without taking collateral. Do not curse Elohim. Some translations refer to it as judges here. Do not curse a Nasi among your people. Some interpret this as to not curse the king or the head of the Sanhedrin, in terms of the interpretation of what the mitzvah is. Text says you shall not revile Elohim, revile God, and you shall not curse a leader among your people.
That'd be kind of hard to do that.
Well, cursing is one thing. I think debate about their.
Telling the truth is another.
I don't know. Cursing is that's an action there.
So I
How would you curse?
wonder what it defines leader as there. Is it meaning
Well, Nasi is
governmental leader, spiritual leader, yes to all the above, or what?
well, I mean, certainly in Torah or in temple times, well, when Israel had a leader of their own, so to speak, well, in the wilderness, certainly the leader, the Nasi, you could say, would be Moshe. Even though he wasn't the priest, the Nasi later, Nasi could be leader or prince, would be another, prince or sar would be the word there for prince, but Nasi kind of is like the Nasi of a Sanhedrin was the leader of the Sanhedrin. There wasn't, certainly there wasn't a separation of congregation and state at that time when the Torah was revealed. Of course, later there was a difference between the high priest and the king. And so in practical matters of the time period, the later time period, the king or the head of the Sanhedrin or the high priest would be in that role, potentially.
What form back then would this curse take? What would that mean to curse them? I mean, today someone might think, oh, you're slinging swear words at them.
Yeah.
What does it mean back then to curse somebody?
Hard to say, I guess, in terms of the exact idea of what a curse would entail. It could mean I would think it would mean making an attempt to harm them by words, I suppose. Cussing isn't necessarily cussing is the American form of the word curse, right? It's a shortening of that, but it doesn't mean calling them names. Perhaps I think, or not only that, it would mean more about seeking them harm, I would guess. And it could be the same. When you look at "do not curse Elohim," how would you? That's, remember, it was the phrase of Job's wife who said, "Curse God and die," was the phrase, or she was encouraging him to do that so that he would basically be rid of his torment. It's a mitzvah to not do that. So
But it still doesn't say what she meant by that. What did curse mean by that? Curse God. Okay, how do I do that?
I want to welcome Earl. I just saw he sent a note some minutes ago.
Hey, Earl.
Everyone says shalom, Earl.
Over. I've gotten angry at him from rocks in the sky. All the names. That's not cursing God. It is.
You think some of that could mean trying to go to a sorcerer to curse, put a curse on somebody?
It could be. I mean, it just follows kind of shortly after the discussions about
sorcery.
sorcerers. Yeah.
See, that what was trying to be done with, can't remember the names. We're part of our liturgy coming, where it says, Israel's tents are beautiful. What was that incident?
Yeah, that was.
Balaam. Balaam.
Mhm,
Balaam.
Mhm.
They were trying to get Balaam to curse.
So, in that sense, it wasn't necessarily to cuss at them; it was to cause bad things to happen to them.
Something spiritual, bad things to happen by spiritual means. Yeah.
Yeah.
To express harmful things on somebody, wanting it to happen, and hoping that your words make it happen because you're so angry at them. Yeah, that's messy.
What's Earl say about it?
Earl just says Shabbat Shalom. Cece says, like, asked him to put a curse on Israel, and Balaam couldn't do it.
She's thinking along the same line.
Yeah, because King Balak sent men to bring him here so he can curse these people. He obviously wanted him to pronounce
A curse.
words on the people so that it would harm them and they wouldn't be able
Right.
to come and attack
When it
Balak.
did- and when it didn't
Yeah.
work, he said, well, let's try another place. Maybe your curse will work from over here.
But he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't express it.
Yeah.
But then he found a way to really get them wrong.
A backdoor means, yeah.
Yeah, have them curse themselves by
Yes.
taking up with
Their behavior. Yeah. Yeah.
basically following after their own, following after false deities,
Yeah. That'll bring it on.
curse themselves. Yeah. Well, the next one might be easier to solve. Do not eat an animal which is torn to pieces. Art scroll says, "People of holiness shall you be to me. Shall not eat flesh of an animal that was torn in the field. To the dog shall you throw it."
Roadkill's out.
That doesn't include pulled pork.
Uh,
Sorry.
Well, where it
Dog.
says you can't eat something that was savaged.
Yeah.
But you can sell it to a Gentile to eat.
yeah, other places I think it says that. This place says to throw it to your dogs.
Well, here, but I mean elsewhere. It says you can, but you can sell it
Mhm.
to, I don't know if they said Gentile, but someone who is not an Israelite.
Yeah. Goyim, strangers. I don't remember what exactly the context was.
You could use the the fur of it to make something with them.
Yeah, we don't eat it. So,
It's not the same as eating it. Do not bear false rumors. Do not join in with the wicked in being a malicious witness. Do not follow the majority to do evil, or the multitude to pervert justice. I think that the perversion of justice seems to be a significant part of this portion.
Mhm.
In other words, don't follow the majority to do it. Don't be a malicious witness, and don't favor a poor person in a lawsuit just because he is a
Just
poor
because
person.
it's bored.
You have to let justice you shall do. Return your enemy's stray animal to him, even if it's an enemy, not just an opponent or
Mhm.
competitor.
Even if you hate his guts,
Yeah.
he hates your guts. It's not the animal's fault.
Yeah, same with the 23.5. Remove the load from beasts which can't carry it anymore. even if it's someone who hates you. Do not decide unjustly against the case. I mean, don't decide for him because he's poor, but don't also decide against him because he's poor. So don't be a fraudster.
I think in other places it says, I had it in my office posted up, not only about the poor, but also don't show favoritism to somebody in your judgment just because he's rich.
Yeah, neither one. Justice you shall pursue. Don't cause the death of an innocent or the righteous. Do not accept a bribe. So the phrase that's from 23:7, the phrase that is used in warfare sometimes is collateral damage, but that would violate the mitzvah to not cause the death of an innocent, if that person was in fact an innocent.
So we would have been at fault for dropping the nuke on Japan.
True.
Yeah.
So you could argue that warfare causes breaking mitzvot. Through 8, do not accept a bribe. That seems to be something that frequently happens in this day and age, or perhaps maybe just this area. I don't know. It seems like there's been several cases of recent cases, and there was the recent case of Fort Sill and a local hotel where the hotel manager was paying a bribe to the Fort Sill employee to funnel soldiers to her hotel. If there, I guess, there's not room at Fort Sill, you send them off post, and she was sending him bribes so that he would send soldiers her way.
Bribes, that was finder's fees.
Well, apparently finder's fees are against the law because they both were convicted.
She was giving them a commission. They were employees.
He was an employee of the U.S. government.
Can't do jobs.
He was about a year away from retirement too. So I guess he's trying to pad his retirement somewhat. Leave all self-growth, which grows during the 7th year, so the poor and wild animals may eat of it. It's hard today to do any of that because of the advent of fences in a lot of places.
Advent of what?
Fences.
Oh.
If someone comes on your property to reap the last few apples on your tree, they might be considered to be trespassers.
Might get shot.
Might.
Oh, back in Illinois, Indiana, I can remember. Even one of my grandmas, we were driving, and she'd come by a field that has something she wanted, and it had already been harvested, but just had the gleanings left. She'd get out and go fill stuff. People around there expected that to happen.
Good.
Only thing is, before you jump the fence, you gotta make sure there's not a bull over there.
Around here, the crops mostly grown are not really produce in that sense.
No, it's crops that have to be further processed.
Yeah. Well, or not even food products like cotton.
Yeah.
Rest on Shabbat. Do not turn any people to idol worship. Do not swear by an idol. The Torah of the 3 regalim, 3 pilgrimage feasts. Shalosh regalim, 3. Now, regalim is actually the word for feet.
Why is her there? Is that a feminine?
It's a feminine form, yeah. Um, 3 times you shall celebrate a feast to me. So, in other words, if you walk to the feast, it's good.
I was just thinking, I read a little while ago that Hebrew the verbs or the words are based on action.
Verbs are action, yeah. The language is based on action.
Yeah, and so, so the feast would be something you would walk to. I mean, that makes sense to me.
The word there for feast, you see it in the word tachog. The last 2 letters, the chet, gimel, typically in standard would be chag. You shall celebrate, the tav in there brings it to a future, or future action. 3 times you shall celebrate. Um, 3 times in the year, all your males shall appear before the master Yehovah. So the you in this sense seems to be for the males to go and not necessarily for the females to go. It doesn't say they couldn't go, but perhaps with the additional responsibilities of being a mom, they may not be able to. The kids couldn't easily go if it's long distances across the country. So it's not a requirement for them to go. They certainly can, but not a requirement. Worship Elohim. Do not allow idolaters to settle in the land. Earl, in response to our prayer request earlier, Earl says that his cousin's wife has been found and she is in the hospital. That's definitely praise. Awesome. The text says, behold, I'm sending an angel before you. And then verse 21, be on your guard before him, obey his voice, and do not be rebellious toward him, for he will not pardon your transgression, since my name is in him. So comparing that to Devarim 18, 17, 19, Yud-Heh-Vav said to me, they have spoken well. I will raise up a prophet from among their countrymen, like you, Moshe, and I will put my words in his mouth. And he shall speak to them by command. It shall come about whoever does not listen to my words, which he speak in my name, I myself will require of him. So obedience is required of the angel and of the prophet. So is it possible that the two are one, that the angel speaking of, or the messenger, is Moshe? I don't think that's the case here, but there is both the prophet and the angel are to be obeyed. Because as you know, angel could be the word, angel is a word for messenger. The same word for angel and messenger. So is it human messenger here or not? It seems like it's definitely not a human messenger that's being spoken of in our passage back here in Exodus 23. I'm going to send an angel before you to guard you on the way. That's definitely not Moshe. So this is kind of the wording here is as a marriage vow, in the sense of the people are essentially, the bride of Yah is being spoken of here. We will obey every word that Adonai has spoken. Verses in verse 3, as well as again repeated in verse 7. We took the book of the covenant and read it aloud. So the following verse, verse 8, Moshe took the blood, sprinkled it on the people, and said, "This is the blood of the covenant." So blood, we see that we read about not eating blood because the life is the blood, so blood equals life. The altar is where the blood goes, and so here the blood goes where? On the people. The people are the altar in this sense. Thus, we have a picture of creation when Yah put life upon us and in us. Well, we have coming up on the calendar a Roman holiday called Valentine's Day. In ancient Rome, February 14th was the holiday to honor Juno, the queen of heaven, the goddess of women and marriage. The feast of Lupercalia was from the 13th to the 15th of the month of February. On Lupercalia, the names of Roman girls were written on slips of paper and placed into jars. Each young man would draw a girl's name from the jar and would then be partners for the duration of the festival with the girl whom he chose. Lupercus was the god of shepherds and the equivalent of the Greek god named Pan. Lupercalia was celebrated on the anniversary of the founding of his temple in Rome. His priests were completely nude except for wearing goat skins. The Lupercal is the cave where Romulus and Remus, supposedly, were suckled by a female wolf. At this cave on February 15th, 2 male goats and a dog were sacrificed, and salt meal cakes prepared by the Vestal virgins were burned. After the animals were slain, two young priests were brought forward. The bloody knives were cleaned off with a piece of wool soaked in milk, and these 2 priests were then anointed with the blood-milk mixture. Women would line up to bear their flesh to be whipped by strips of goat skins from sacrifices. This was thought to increase fertility and ease the pain of childbearing. I guess making them tough to being hit by whipped. According to tradition, a Christian priest from Rome, Valentine, was martyred on February 14th for performing marriages according to the Christian rites in 269 of the Common Era. In 495 of the Common Era, Pope Gelasius banned Lupercalis, and to sanitize or Christianize this holiday, the names of the saints were used instead of the names of the girls, and the name of the holiday became changed to Saint Valentine's Day. On Saint Valentine's Day, when every fowl cometh there to chase his mate. That's from Chaucer. He brought another imagery of blooming spring, a tradition that birds choose their mates in spring to describe the courtship of King Richard II and Anne of Bohemia. In this poem, Parliament of Fowls, Chaucer also chose Saint Valentine as patron saint for that marriage, which is the first mention of Valentine in a love poem. The reinvention of the commercialization of Valentine's Day began in the 1840s. The first mass-produced Valentines of embossed paper lace were produced and sold after 1847 in the U.S., but in practice of sending Valentine's Day cards already existed in England. Today, Valentine's Day is the second largest card-sending holiday of the year, just behind Christmas.
So why am I learning this?
So we can, so you know how to brush your teeth.
Yeah. Let's see, little toothbrushing, that's nice. Brush the dog's teeth.
What are your questions? About Valentine's Day? About anything we've covered so far?
I had a thought. I wonder, that portion of the scripture we read where we discussed where my name is in him.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if that could be some kind of reference to Messiah. Because if indeed his name is Joshua,
Mm-hmm.
and Yah is in the name, I wonder if that could be pointing to that in some way.
Could be. It could mean like authority as well. My authority is in him. I've given him a charge.
Yeah.
Like stop.
Like a sheriff's deputy.
Yeah. Right. Stop in the name of the law. Could be that sort of idea of. Certainly, it could be related. I don't disagree with
The
that.
reason I was also thinking was because of verse 2 to 4 makes a mention of preparing a place for
Mm-hmm.
us, so to speak, as Yeshua said.
Mm-hmm. Right. All right. Well, let's go ahead and close then. But thank you for the blessing of Shabbat. Thank you for giving it to us. Thank you for all your blessings. And thank you for our ability and our freedom to Midrash on your word. Thank you in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach. Amen. Amen.